I don't even want to say the education is given, just the ideas, the ideologies, and the environment that is created from the ideologies. It's an echo chamber. It's an echo chamber of agree with me, agree with me, agree with me. And if you don't agree with me, then you got to be hating on me. And that's one thing we got to be able to move from. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to have different ideas. But what's not okay is to fight about it. You're supposed to
Yeah,
be able to agree to disagree, or be adult enough to come to a common solution, to come to some kind of agreements that can benefit both sides. Or somebody be adult enough to understand that, wait, maybe your idea ain't working. What's going on, family? I'm just here to remind you that you can get yourself a copy of my new book, On the Shoulders of Giants, Volume 4 of the Caribbean, by visiting my website, www.ontheshoulders1.com, and help support me as I continue on my mission to make sure that my people have our information, even though, there are many people trying to stop us from learning our history. But hey, we can teach ourselves. And one of the tools we can use is my new book, On the Shoulders of Giants, Volume 4, The Caribbean. Remember, visit my website, www.ontheshoulders1.com, to get your copy. And I appreciate your support. What's up, my people? You already know what it is. Joseph Ward, Patrick Irvin. That means that is Breakdown Friday right here on the Shoulders of Giants. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. If you are a new viewer, thank you for tuning in. This is a channel where we tell the stories of sung and unsung heroes of the African diaspora. And we also make sure that we break down our information and utilize our information to better ourselves, better our communities, and better our whole overall situation here. And that's mainly what we do on Breakdown Friday. For all my returning viewers, y'all already know what it is. I love you all. Thank you all for the continuous support. I do want to say this. Y'all make sure you all stay tuned, because I have a lot of new ideas that I've put some already into play, and I have some new content coming soon to this On the Shoulders of Giants channel. We're gonna be making shifts from some of the content that we were posting and to some new type of content. So y'all make sure y'all stay tuned for that. I'm just digging into my mind and coming up with different ways to utilize this historical information that we have. So y'all stay tuned for that, because we got some fun and exciting and educational stuff coming up. Make sure you support me on Patreon at patreon.com/OTSOG. You can also support me by hitting the super like button under this video. So you know how it go down. I just want to give a shout out to my mom and my daddy, just because. Shout out to mamas and daddies, just because. You know what I'm saying? What's going on, Pat?
not much, man. Just chilling.
Yeah, you feeling good, man?
Ah, yeah, Yeah, I'm good. I
Yeah,
can't complain. Know what I'm talking about?
yeah, man. Complaining don't do nothing. It don't make it better. It don't make it better. Ain't no
Mm,
solution. Right?
You need solutions, right? You need
Hey,
solutions.
you need them solutions. Right, man. You already know real quick. Tell them about your book.
Oh yeah, the book, The Chasm, you can find on Amazon. Type in The Chasm by Patrick Irvin. It looked like that. It is a book looking at the growing divide between black men and black women and ways that we can close that divide. Some ideas. It's a starting point for learning about the history and thinking about some of the things that have happened and some of the things we can do to make it better. Go and get The Chasm on Amazon. Appreciate you.
Go and get The Chasm on Amazon. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Really going down. So today's breakdown, we're breaking down the video from Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton is having a conversation with other black people, other community members, about about education and organization. Um, if you're going to have organization, you need some kind of education, some kind of structure, some kind of codes, something to keep things in place. And he's talking about why that's important to have in place, because you don't really want chaos. And I like the way he was articulating what he's saying. We're going to take this information to break it down and see how relevant it is for us right here in 2022, and how we can use the information that he's given to improve our conditions right here in 2022. Because we know we need a lot of education within a lot of the realms that we exist in, just not just in organization, but just in everything. We need a lot of good education. So let's do this.
You basically knowing my ideology, basically you knowing me knowing yours, you can support some of our programs. Is that what you're saying?
Why not?
And you believe in programs like the Breakfast with Children program and free health clinics? Right on, brothers?
We believe they're good things.
Uh-huh.
As a focal point to organize their mothers and fathers.
Uh-huh.
Peace.
Mm-hmm. There's no educational program here?
That's come out of the social action thing. You know, you set that up, but I mean, we can't put everything on one piece of paper.
What about this bank?
Credit union?
Mm-hmm.
Credit union. Credit union, my brother.
Is a
if
bank.
you're hip, are you hip to credit unions? It is a bank.
Yeah, you go and borrow money?
Yeah, it's a bank. It's a bank. Owned by the people, run for the people, and by the people.
What will money be given out to people for?
Well, the people would decide that. You want to buy, you know, whatever, you know, the people in the community decide.
You need some living room furniture, maybe? You need a car, maybe?
See, the thing is with me, you dig, I need to know some more about it. I wish you had some more literature about the educational thing here. Because, you dig, as far as we're concerned in the struggle, the way we look at struggle is that this depends on the educational thing, you dig. Because
this depends on the education. Well, the whole thing.
No, but in the end, this does. You can form this with no education. You can form this.
No, not the way we're talking about forming it. You know, right. We're talking about forming it right. You know, it's not on the paper. We didn't write it on the
No, you
paper.
can form it right with no education.
No.
Let me give you an example. Jomo Kenyatta formed the excellent revolution with no education. And on the day of the end thing, Yomo told the motherfucker, said, well, you know, you can educate, hate the enemy, but I'm your brother. I'll help you lead the revolution. Now I'm more pressure. Another example, Papa Doc in Haiti. Papa Doc in Haiti hated everything white. Man, you couldn't put this white paper in front of Papa Doc's face. But he moved all the white people out and he took over and be the president. He did, causing no education. And the people that had been educated, they just said that we don't hate the motherfucking white people, we hate the oppressor, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow. So we got to know the educational program to find out what is going to be in the finale. A lot of people, Yomo Kenyatta is called never a revolutionary, but an ex-revolutionary. So is Papa Doc. They brought on a successful revolution. That thing in the Mao's was a bitch. Bantu freedom fighters, all that kind of action. What we're saying is that it's the end. That you don't judge Castro now. You can't do it. Nobody in this room could judge whether Castro's going to be a revolutionary or not. You know what I mean? We're talking about things, you know what I mean, with China, the People's Republic, and even at the stage they're in now, talking about even going on further into a communistic state. That's what we're talking about. Those are revolutionary. So we got to understand here the educational program that you have to be able to figure out whether it will go on the right lines where the people will end up in a situation where they can be able to really control themselves. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, the people take this local foundation and start stealing money because they won't be really educated to why it's the people's thing anyway. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, you have neo-colonialism instead of colonialism, like you got in Africa now, like you got in Haiti. So what we're talking about is there has to be an educational program. That's very important. As a matter of fact, it's so important for us that a person has to go through 6 weeks of our political education before he can consider himself a member of the party, able to even run down ideology for the party. Why? Because if they don't have an education, then they're nowhere. You dig what I'm saying? They're nowhere because they don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. You might get people caught up in the emotionalist movement. You understand me? You might get them caught up in because they're poor and they want something. And then if they're not educated, they want more. And before you know it, they'll be capitalists. And before you know it, we have Negro imperialists.
So I'm gonna take it back to this point for the that's the case we need to go back through it. But I'm with them. What I like about this, like I said earlier, because it builds off of what we talked about last week, because we talked about mobilization and the organization and how important both of those are. But this goes into breaking down the structure of organization and the foundation of organizations and the things that would make an organization be long lasting. So it's principle, it's structure, it's values, it's education, it's all these things that will go into an organization, like the who, what, where, when, why, and how. It's not just chaos. It's not just, all right, we're against you, we don't want you to be our oppressor, we overthrow this, and now everybody, it's a mad scramble for power between the people who are left. And those are things that you want to avoid, especially because that's you mobilize people for a specific task, and now that task is done, There's no real structure, no real organization in place. The people who are supposed to be a part of the organization don't have a specific education, or they don't have the skill sets or the knowledge to truly structure this the way it's supposed to be, to create a foundation, to build it up from the ground up, and be able to have something tangible to pass on with ideologies in place, values, core, just different ways of living, culture, and all these things here, rather than just passing on chaos, because that's what he's talking about. Passing on
Mm-hmm.
chaos to avoid. How do you avoid passing on chaos? How do you avoid implosion happening once the oppressor is gone? And then he gave examples of implosions that happen once the oppressors were gone. So those are things that I think are very, very, very important, and it builds off what we talked about last week.
Yeah, because when I think about because the key thing for me when I listen to this is, the emphasis on the importance of education and how poorly defined that term actually is in our modern discourse.
Yep.
Um, because a lot of the times when we start talking about education, we start talking about the conversation veers away from education and into inculcation or various philosophies or ideas that we think need to be spread. Those things in and of themselves are not education. Those things are the things that are transmitted through the educational process.
Right.
So I think one of the things that's important about what he's saying here is we need to have a process put in place in order
Hmm.
to spread the information that we want spread to the people that we feel need to get it. And the people that come out of the other side of that educational process, if they don't feel the way we feel, if they don't think the way we think, then they can't be a part of what we're doing. The
Right.
education is open to anybody that wants to receive it, but only a select few that go through it and come out of it the way that we want them to come out of it are going to be able to rock with us. And that is so important nowadays, where you get a bunch of people who barely even know each other, don't really know what each other's philosophies are, what each
Hmm.
other's beliefs are, past backgrounds, experiences are, but they might say one or two things that makes them feel good, which is when he talked about that emotional piece. We might get
Hmm.
led into an emotional movement, and now you're in this situation where people feel good, they
Yep.
start doing stuff,
Yep.
and then the true differences in their worldview
Yep.
show up, and
Clash.
everything starts to
Clashing.
crumble.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I couldn't. I don't know why I couldn't remember the name of the rebellion last week. I just pushed the video last week, but go back and look at my last Wednesday's video of the Bird Bites Rebellion, the Bird Bites Rebellion, and looking at the Bird Bites Rebellion. I talked about it last week. I reiterated it again because it goes perfectly what we're talking about. You had two key figures. You had the political leader and the military leader. Because no real structure, no real code of conduct, no real solidarity, no real foundation that they built their revolution on. When the military leader and the political leader started to clash, and they clashed. The military leader wanted to become free by force. The political leader wanted to use the political process. The military leader was like, "No, we're gonna keep raiding these," because they were fighting they're fighting the Dutch, and they was like, "We're going to keep raiding these people and keep raiding these people and keep raiding these people," and in that caused a split in the revolution. Half of them went with the military leader, half of them went with the political leader, and from there, the rebellion crumbled because they were a formidable opponent to the Europeans. They were actually able to hold them off for a while, for like a year, hold them off for a while. But when they started to clash, and they had the differences in ideologies, when people couldn't put their egos to the side,
Mm-hmm.
things started to fall apart. And that's one
Absolutely.
thing. But we talked about this in the past. These are things that Europeans have sat back and observed in our behavior. And they exploit those subtle differences and make those subtle differences grand differences. And now black folk don't like each other no more.
What? And I think that's the because one of the most important things about the educational process, right? And by that process, again, I'm referring to the teaching and receiving of knowledge. That process,
Yes.
one of the most critical parts of that process is that it it enables and creates the critical thinking component of those that engage in it. Now, you can set up an educational process that really dumbs down or nullifies or negates or um removes the critical thinking piece like we have in the public school system in a lot of places, not all of them, but in a lot of places. But you can also have a educational process that encourages and engages the critical thinking part. But that critical thinking part is only activated through proper education. Like, so that's one of the things where it's like we have got to, we, in the world we live in today, where we all feel like we're so pressed for time, a lot of times education becomes an afterthought because we don't think we have time to properly educate. And that is, I think, one of the shortcomings of the modern day movement is that there is a failure to educate because everybody's in a push to do something now, not understanding that educating is doing something now.
Mm-hmm.
So when we start talking about organizations, um, when we start talking about homeschooling, private schooling, charter schooling, education, Sunday schooling, all of these different things, going to church, orientations for your job, all of these various forms of education that even the most urgent of places and dealing with the most urgent of matters understand the importance of. But when it comes to organizing Black people around liberating what we need to do, liberating ourselves or putting ourselves in a better position, we don't really seriously consider educating.
Right. So the spook that sat by the door. I think about that because
Mm-hmm.
I think that was, if you're a Black person in America and you are serious about Black people improving our situation, I believe that the spook that sat by the door is necessary for you to watch. And it's
Mm-hmm.
necessary for you to watch because it hits on all the points that you were just talking about. The the teaching and receiving of information, and that information can be understood and used.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a synopsis of the movie, Freeman was the main character. Freeman was a Black guy who became a part of the CIA. He became a part of the CIA. The overall plan was to gain education, gain knowledge, gain information, gain skill sets to be able to take back to his community, to be able to have his
Mm-hmm.
community take over their community and run their community. And he brought back information, structure, organization, all of those things to help mobilize people. But there was a structure to the mobilization. There was a structure to the organization,
Mm-hmm.
and that was broken. And he broke it down like, hey, if Freeman dies, the 17th person under Freeman knew how to run the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in the organization had specific skill sets. Everybody had a specific type of education. Everybody knew what to do if things went right, and everybody knew what to do if things went wrong. So that even if Freeman wasn't there, there would be no chaos because the organization could live on the way it was structured. Now, think about the way organizations, my eye itch, but think about the way organizations are created nowadays. If the leader of the organization is taken away, there is total and immediate chaos. We seen
Mm-hmm.
that. Let's just be real. We seen that on the street levels, when we can even talk about with some of the gangs and some of the street organizations and stuff. When they took like the OGs away, these young kids just out here, it was bad then. And it's still bad now because these young kids are running
Mm-hmm.
around with no code of conduct, no street conduct, no coaching, anything like that. We can even see that in these so-called organizations that's supposed to be fighting for our community. When somebody is fired, somebody is arrested, somebody is taken away, somebody stepped down, anything, the organization goes into straight disarray. There's there is an issue because at the end of the day, with all this organization that we have, no real tangible progress is made because it's not built on nothing tangible. It's not it's not supported by anything that that's worth supporting it. That's strong enough to support it. That should be supporting it. It's not planted in any fertile soil.
And the and that's where we go back to the what fertile the fertile soil itself is the educational process.
Right.
Now, the seeds that are planted are the ideas, and they take root and they grow. But without that educational process to create the fertile soil that'll allow the seed to grow, that's one of the problems we're having now. We try to plant seeds on barren land and
Yeah.
then get mad when it doesn't yield any fruit.
Yeah.
One of the things that was always interesting to me was when I first started getting into TQM, Total Quality Management, which was a predecessor to Lean Six Sigma. There was always this concept, no matter how far back you go into quality database management of materials, movements, and peoples. There was always this idea that you want your organization to be 3 levels deep. That means everybody should know how to do the job of everybody 3 levels below them and 3 levels above them. And
Yeah.
what that does is it prevents any one person from being so important that the
Yeah.
organization
Yeah.
dies. And
Prevents
this is where
tyranny.
we right, and it goes back to the leadership principles that I talked about last week, where one of the primary jobs of a leader is to groom new leaders. If you are a leader that has not done that, then I question your leadership abilities. But all of this stuff is transmitted through education, even through the educational process. That's where we create the level of thinking that allows somebody to say, I disagree with you
Yeah.
on this way,
Yeah.
but I agree with you on the general flow. But I think I can enhance what we're doing together if I step outside and do my own thing from my own angle with people that think like me. So we're
Right.
still working towards a common goal. We're just coming at it from 2 different directions. You know why that's not happening more? Because there's no education that encourages that kind of critical thinking.
Yeah. It's it the I don't even want to say the education is given, just the ideas, the ideologies, and the environment that is created from the ideologies. It's an echo chamber. It's an echo chamber of agree with me, agree with me, agree with me. And if you don't agree with me, then you got to be hating on me. And that's one thing we got to be able to move from. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to have different ideas. But what's not okay is to fight about it. You're supposed to
Yeah.
be able to agree to disagree, or be adult enough to come to a common solution, to come to some kind of agreements that can benefit both sides. Or somebody be adult enough to understand that, wait, maybe your idea ain't working.
And and the challenge with that is always going to be one thing we got to understand. We talk about education a lot, and we're talking about it a lot in this show, but here's the truth of it. Education is going to happen regardless of whether you want it to or not. Information is going to be transmitted and received whether or not you want it to happen. But you want to be able to control the flow of it. You want to be able to control how it occurs so that you can control how people come out the end of the process. And the problem we have now is we've allowed other people to control the educational process by default. And even when we take ourselves out of the traditional, and in this, I'll use an example of a typical school environment where you remove your kid from a public school, but then you give them the same education that they would get in a public school. Well, you haven't
Yeah,
changed
yeah,
anything.
yeah. You just change the environment, but you still give them
Right,
the same half-ass information that
right,
you complain about.
right. You're transmitting the same information. They're receiving it the same way, and you're using the same tools to do it. You're not doing anything different. And so
Right,
you're going to grow up and create a child that's basically identical to their peers with less social skills,
right,
unless you're one of those people that are all out and you make sure your kids are highly involved in other activities. But the main purpose of most people pulling their kids out of public school is to enhance the education that they receive. And then a lot of them turn around and give them the same education. That's what we're saying. It doesn't. like you have to be intentional about it. And as organizations, even if you're going to join an organization, if they don't have a thorough and in-depth onboarding process, a
Yeah.
thorough and in-depth process for how they review new people,
And
how
they
they
vet.
train new people,
Yeah.
how they vet new people, and how they utilize new people, then you need to question what this organization
The
is actually
overall goal.
doing,
Yeah.
because they don't have a real view on education that's going to result in anything tangible. Everything is
Well,
going to be accidental.
well, if all right, well, let's just be transparent and be real, because I think this would be good, because people won't think we just out here just talking and just doing these breakdowns just to talk. So Pat and I have been active in our communities for the past like 12, 13, maybe 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So about 10 years ago, we started with a community assessment plan.
Mm-hmm.
And the the overall failure of implementing the community assessment plan, if we're being real, was a lack of organizational education.
Mm-hmm.
Because you and I knew what we wanted to do, but we failed in articulating our overall goal and our mission. And we also failed in providing a structure and education for that structure to
Right.
continue. So that's why we had to start over and, go back to the blocks and redo it and rethink it and retool it, because we didn't have structure in place. We had idea, we had all this emotion, we had all this grit. We knew what we wanted to do, and we
Mm-hmm.
had all this energy to do it, but we didn't have a structure to doing it. So that's why we were able to only sustain ourselves for a little while, and then everybody who was on board fell off.
Right. And to add to that, when we did retool it, um, it did spread and it was more successful. We got it to be utilized
Yeah.
in 20 or 30 different communities across the nation. But then the secondary problem came in, which was a failure to onboard and vet the people
Right.
that were volunteering. So
Right.
they knew the process, they knew the community development plan, they knew the intentions, they knew the goal, they knew the process, but we didn't make sure that they had the right mindset
Right.
to properly
Right.
utilize it and to have
Right.
the persistence to complete it.
Right.
So those are
So
two failures of education.
So the things that Fred Hampton will talk about, we fell victim to. Now we didn't have strife or no implosion or no
No, we
coup
didn't.
happen or nothing like that. But the organization, or the organizational structure that we created, did not sustain itself because of a lack of education, lack of structure, lack of organization, true organization that would give us the desired results, which in turn, hurts the community that we were looking to serve.
Right. And I want to make it because that's a great example. Because again, we talk when we're talking about education, we're talking about the transmission and the reception, transmitting and receiving information.
Mhm.
That's not just about history. That's
Right.
not just about math and science.
Right.
We're talking about ideas
Right.
and critical thinking and ways of thinking and perspectives, ways of viewing the world. All of these things are transmitted through the educational process. Your job understands this, which is why most people, when they get onto a big name corporation, they have an onboarding process where they're educated not about the ways of the world, but about the ways of the company. This is how the
Right.
company thinks.
Right.
This is how the company does things.
Right.
That's education. But it
Right.
serves in making sure that one, they get the proper people with the proper thinking and alignment on board to do what they do. And two, that everybody is in the same mind frame when it
Yes.
comes to doing what they do.
Because you're going to create toxic culture if you don't, and toxic culture always fails. It always fails. Overall, if we can look, even if we look at outside of organizations, just look at Black America. I've been saying it lately. We are Black people in America. We're not Black America, because we have no structure at all. There's no code of conduct. There's no culture of unity, a culture of oneness, a culture of this is the direction that we're moving as one, right? That doesn't exist for us. We are black people in America and we are in total disarray. And the education that we've been receiving, especially I would say, if I would say the last 50, 60 years, the education that we've been receiving has not been the best education. Re um it's been remember and recall,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not been beneficial to us building, growing, empowering ourselves, or changing anything. But the education and the culture that has been produced that we have lived in has led to nothing, to a lot of strife, a lot of things that are degenerate, a lot of things that have been breaking down over the years. And that's why we find ourselves in this place that we are now, where we talk a good game about how great of a position that we are, but when we actually really look at the facts and we look at the numbers, we're in a bad position. And our organizations that are in disarray are a microcosm of just Black America itself being in disarray. And I'm not saying that's absolute 100% across the board. That's not everybody, but it's too many of us. It's a great majority of us. That's why we're in the position that we're in. There are some people who do have things in place and do have their organizations. And hey, we need to be finding those organizations and highlighting those. But for the most part, we can see the 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 organizations that get highlighted the most, the organizations that end up being the ones who make the greatest impact on Black people, lack the true education that can really lead to tangible results for us. And that's one thing that we're really missing. And we got to reel it back, because it's not about being famous or remembered. It's about making change, making progress.
Yeah, and I want to highlight something you said. Because the strife, the discord, Black America pretty much exists in a bunch of groups that
Yes.
also exist in a state of groupthink.
Right.
And that is a prime example of education left with no intentions.
Right.
Um, because when you think about, right, like the purpose of our education has to be to open minds and perspectives to critical thinking and to understanding difference in perspectives don't necessarily mean enemy, don't doesn't necessarily mean somebody that is an obstacle that must be destroyed. But that's what we see every time we run into these sorts of educational divides. I'm thinking about politics in particular, where if you don't agree with the Democrats, you a coon and you ain't black. And if
Hmm.
you don't agree with the Republicans, then you one of the sleep woke Democrats,
Right.
one of the crazy people on the left. And nobody's really, there are a few people in the middle, but even they exist in their own bubble of saying, well, it's two sides to the same bird. They're both crazy. This, that, or the third. There are very few people out there that are actually sitting back and looking at the merits of the issues that we face one after the other and making their decisions based on those merits. Most people are either saying I'm hardcore Democrat, they're saying I'm hardcore Republican, or they're saying I'm hardcore neither.
Right.
And all three of those are three different types of groupthink.
Right. Right.
So, but that goes back to the lack of intentional education,
Yeah.
the lack of an educational imperative or an educational initiative that would actually serve some sort of intentional purpose for
Yeah.
developing us as a community.
We don't put a premium just on education, period, in our community anymore. We have more of a premium on athletics than we do education.
Absolutely.
And in order for the athletics to work long term, you're gonna need some type of education. You're gonna need some type of information. Um, and I'm not saying that the child has to go to college. I'm not, but what I am saying, the child has to be able to think. You got to put something in the child's head. The child has to have to have somebody pour something into them to be able to benefit off of any path that they take. Education has to be in place. The Once again, the education that we're receiving is remember and recall, and it's like one of those the education is like eating a bag of Cheetos. It ain't got no nutritional value at all.
Yeah,
It's just,
but it
you
feels
know,
good, and
yeah,
people that like it crave it.
yeah, and to give you gas.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But we need education that s- leads to the solving of our problems. And any education that we're receiving that's not leading to the solving of our problems is really a waste of our time.
Well, I think that another thing that has to be admitted here, I think any sort of development is difficult. I'm not so and what I'm about to say, I'm not saying that one is easy and one isn't, but it is a lot more difficult to develop the mind than the body.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot harder to develop the mind than the body. And the reason I say that is because the body hurts, but the results can be seen. And they can be seen fairly quickly. And you also know exactly what you need to do to improve your body. You know, if you want to get stronger, you gotta do resistance training. If you want to get faster, you got to do resistance training and technique training. You know, if you want to get better at your jump shot, you gotta do some technique training, some mechanics training, but mostly you gotta put up a bunch of shots. When you ask somebody what do they need to get more intelligent, to be able to think more critically, to be able to perceive a bunch of different perspectives, even those that they haven't been introduced to, just from thinking about a problem, being able to see the various perspectives that might be existing there. A lot of people, and I can say this because I've been asking this question for a while, a lot of people don't know how to do that. They say, well, shit, I guess you just read books. And then you say, well, how does reading books increase your intelligence? I don't know. But you ask anybody, how do you get stronger? How do you get more fit? But then there's
Yeah.
also this question, this challenge that we face where um we have to understand that developing the mind makes you tired. It
Mm-hmm.
burns a lot of energy. And the reason I bring
Mm-hmm.
this up is because a lot of the times I hear it all the times. A smaller example would be your kid coming home from a tough day at school and being sleepy. And I've
Yep.
heard plenty of parents say, I don't know what you're tired from. You ain't done nothing but be in school all day. And then you talk to the kid and you find out they've been taking tests all day. Yeah, they
Yeah.
supposed to be tired. Your brain alone utilizes 20%,
Mental fatigue.
25% of your body's total energy stores go directly to your brain. It's an energy sucking machine. So it's going to fatigue you. And when you get fatigued, you're going to be moody. You're going to be tired. You're going to be all of these things. All of those things come with the territory. And I bring all this up because I feel like people don't appreciate and really understand the work that is required to develop your brain. But because they understand the work that's required to develop your body, and those results speak faster, and there's a real visible tangible result in those results, from being a professional athlete to being able to pick up the opposite sex to whatever, the result is there in a way that is not there for developing your mind, because in order for people to recognize that, they have to get a chance to know you. I think all of those things come into play, and then we have what you just said, which is a community or a culture that puts more value in developing your body than developing your mind.
Yeah. 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 And so we're seeing it on the smaller level, on the just a level of where we talk about building an organization, but we see it on a level of community with us. And lacking proper education, I'm keep saying it again, I think education should teach you to lead you to solutions to the issues that are in front of you. I believe that's what I wholeheartedly believe
Mhm.
education should do. It shouldn't just make you feel smart because you know a bunch of random facts. Like I have a bunch of random facts running around in my head, but the question is, how do I use them damn random facts to change my situation, to improve my life? And if I can't figure that out, then I've really just acquired just some random stuff.
Mhm.
There's no real learning, there's no real education that happened because I don't know how to utilize the information. It's like somebody giving you a some instructions and a whole bunch of pieces of wood and metal, and then they take the instructions away from you and say, put that all together. You ain't gonna get there. You're gonna need a roadmap. We need
Mhm.
the road education helps create those roadmaps. Education helps structure be put in place. Like we create a code of conduct. That's probably the next video we should do, to like break down the code of conduct that we created.
That's not
Probably
a
what
bad idea,
yeah,
actually.
probably what we should do. That's probably what we'll do next week, break down the code of conduct that we created. But you need a code of conduct in place, but you need the right people who have the right mindset and are everybody's working toward the same goal. And yes, my way of getting to that goal may be slightly different, but overall, my way of getting to that goal is not so different that I can't put my differences to the side and roll with something that may be better than what I have. And right now, we are Black America is the snake without that had his head cut off and the body just wiggling around in this total chaos. And once again, the organizations that we've historically been leaning on, and even some of these newer organizations that we've been leaning on, whether they're locally in our communities, even nationally, they haven't been helping us to get to where we need to go. Even we talked about our organization. We didn't have the education, we didn't have the structure in place. But what we are saying now is let's recognize where we went wrong and fix that. Don't just keep going down the road doing it wrong. Let's not keep going down the road getting the same results, which is nothing. Let's fix what's going on. So once again, what we had to do, we had to tweak our community assessment plan, but we still had to tweak it from then. We still have more tweaking to do. But now we've acquired more information, more education. So now we can make it better. So once again, we're putting the onus on ourselves and everybody to get better, to improve. We're not doing these breakdowns to point the finger at anybody. We're looking at ourselves and everybody, but we are saying we all have a part to play in improving our situation. But we got to think first. We got to put thought to it and make sure we come up with competent plans and competent ways to fix what we got going on. And if we don't, once again, I'm gonna keep saying that 50 years from now, we still gonna be in the same position doing what we're doing now, complaining and not being happy.
I think the last thing I want to say is I agree with you. The purpose of education should be to solve problems. I think it should also be to predict future problems and solve those. Um, and I think the last point that I always try to emphasize with education is that it should get people to be able to recognize perspectives. Um,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I'm talking to my boys or the kids I mentor, the kids I coach, or the kids I teach, um, when they say something like, man, the Republicans is crazy, man, the Trump supporters is crazy, I don't just wave that off and say, yeah, they are. No, let's look at that. Why do they think the way they think? What's that perspective? How do they? Because you can't solve the problem by just saying it's crazy.
Yeah.
And you might hear the perspective and it might make total sense. So if a crazy perspective makes total sense, are you crazy?
Right.
We got all kinds of questions that we can ask there. But one of the things I found is that when they finally understand a perspective that they thought was crazy, it no longer becomes crazy. And now when they're problem solving, they utilize that other perspective to cut other problems off before they're even brought up. Well, I would do this, but I know that she thinks like that. And I'm not trying to cause problems with her. So I think if I do this, then it'll work out better. That's critical thinking and education at work. And I see it on a regular basis.
Yep. Yep. We got to put our egos and pride to the side. Stop trying to be the next and stop trying to be the greatest, and make sure we actually get into a solution to our issues, man. It's all about solutions. It's all about solutions. We got to get better. We got to do better. And we got to be better. It's Breakdown Friday once again. Make sure y'all be on the lookout for new content that I got coming up. Look out for that. Pat, make sure y'all check out his book, The Chasm. The link is in the description. I appreciate you coming up with me on these breakdowns, how we do what we do. I'm Joseph Ward. He's Patrick Irvin. This is Breakdown Friday. Hey, this is on the Shoulders of Giants for all of our new viewers, and we'll see y'all next Friday. Peace out.